Some may think it's the life of Riley to be a Big 12 head football coach, but that's not necessarily the rule. We are going to go the extra mile or miles to rank and rate these coaches in the Big 12. Or, if it's a better analogy for you, we're going to the well or wells right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We are ranking the coaches in the Power 5 across the nation. We have posted our video on the Pac-12 ranking those coaches from 12 all the way up to number 1. Our next stop is in the Big 12, where we have a number of new head coaches. And, of course, as is typically the case, taking over the lower programs in the conference. Keep in mind that we're ranking these coaches based on what they can do today, not what they did 10 years ago, although that is obviously an indication of how good they are, because necessarily guys don't get smarter or dumber overnight. But we're ranking the coaches as it stands right now. So a Joe Paterno or Bobby Bowden in their later years, despite being two of the greatest coaches of all time, would not have ranked that high because they lost their fastball. All right, so keep that in mind as we go through this. And for new head coaches, specifically new head coaches to any program, especially at the FBS level, I'm typically ranking them behind coaches that I consider to be successful and ahead of coaches that have not met expectations that I don't believe to have done a good job. And it's also based on projection. All right, here we go. We got Chris Klieman of Kansas State at number 10 in the Big 12. He's 51 years old, much younger than a Bill Snyder, the Purple Wizard, who has to be paid homage because Bill Snyder just did one of the great jobs in the history of college football. You can look at the wins and losses, the championships, and the AP rankings, and that's impressive in and of itself, except when you consider that he brought this program from the ashes, from nothing, and he built it. He didn't rebuild it. It was never built to begin with. He built it in Manhattan and made them a perennial ranked team and contender for the Big 12 championship. Then he left for 3 or 4 seasons, and he came back and brought them back from the ashes and back to competitive football and winning 9-10 games a year. Bill Snyder has done a tremendous job. Look at the record of Kansas State before Bill Snyder and then during his tenure there. I cut a video when he retired, and it clearly shows the difference in Kansas State football pre-Bill Snyder and during his tenure. It was remarkable. So Chris Klieman has his work cut out for him from that standpoint. Kansas State missed a bowl game at 5-7 last year. He only lost 6 games at North Dakota State, going 69-6 with 4 FCS national championships, including the past 2 in 2017 and 18, his others in 2014 and 15. Chris Klieman is not necessarily the worst coach in this league, but let's consider that the other ones have accomplished something at the FBS and Power 5 level, and he has yet to do so. So I rank him right now at number 10, waiting to see what he's able to deliver at Kansas State. All right, at number 9, we've got Neal Brown of West Virginia. Our guest, Skylar Callahan of Dub V Nation, the other night, dubbed Neal Brown as the Diet Dabo, meaning the Diet Dabo Sweeney, the lesser version right now, mini version of Dabo Sweeney, and the energy and the family feel and vibe that he brought to the Clemson football program. We shall see. At Troy, Neal Brown was successful at 35-16, one of only a handful of coaches over the past 3 seasons that has notched double-digit victories all 3 campaigns. Yes, Sun Belt Conference champion in 2017. Took his team to the conference championship game in 2018. They were 3-9 before his arrival. He also improved programs at Kentucky and Texas Tech as offensive coordinator. Neal Brown coming to West Virginia to take over for Dana Holgorsen. Right now, the jury's still out in regards to his effectiveness at the head coaching position at the Power 5 level at West Virginia, and he's got some really good coaches ahead of him. The coaching in the Big 12 is strong. So Neal Brown, a good coach, but at number 9 in the Big 12 right now. All right, at number 8, we've got Matt Rhule of Baylor. Again, he has been an exceptional find for this Baylor program that had hit the skids and all sorts of issues under the horrible leadership of Art Briles. So Matt Rhule comes in from Temple, where he did a fine job, and in his first season, he only won one game. Then instantly, they improved to 7-6, 4-5 in the Big 12 with a bowl victory over Vanderbilt, a highly entertaining game. So already he's winning games in the Big 12, almost half his games in the Big 12 in year 2 with a depleted roster. Depleted roster, damaged psyche at Baylor from the mess that was left, and they instantly go again from 2-10 and only, and then he turns it around. He actually took Temple from 2-10 to 10-4 and 10-3, the 2 last seasons he was there, and then at Baylor from 1 win to 7. So Matt Rhule, yes, I would love to rank him higher than this, but you will see that the head coaching experience and the performance of the coaches in front of him warrant this placement of number 8. But Matt Rhule is an excellent football coach and certainly doing the job at Baylor. 1-11, 7-6 already. All right, at number 7, we have a national championship winning coach in Les Miles at Kansas. And I expect many of you to question me on this ranking of Les Miles, but let's keep this in mind. I am ranking Les Miles based on what I expect him to do right now. Let's also take into consideration that the playing field is not level everywhere, so I'm taking these performances into context. It's more difficult to win at Vanderbilt than Alabama in the same conference, Northwestern than Ohio State in the same conference. Therefore, it's more difficult to win at Kansas than Oklahoma. Therefore, I put that into context based on the prestige of the program, the brand name, the tradition, the facilities, the recruiting footprint, and how easy it is or difficult it is to win in that particular place. Let's look at the good and bad for Les Miles here. He's only one of 4 active coaches, as I mentioned, who has won a national championship, along with Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, and Jimbo Fisher. All right. He took over the program from Nick Saban at LSU that was established as a national championship program, and he continued the winning and won his own championship in 2007 in the SEC and the national championship. All right, he went 114-34 at LSU, 62-28 in the SEC. So that's the good Les. He recruited top 5 talent. Guys love to play for him. He's engaging. He's a good guy. He's a guy that endears himself to young men, and they love to fight for him, play for him, have a good time with him. And they played their hearts out. He achieved at LSU through the 2011 BCS championship game. So he had a shot to beat Alabama for a second time that season and win a second national championship. Now, once you win that second national championship, you are in rarefied air in the history of college football. But, of course, they lost that game 21-0. And, yeah, again, his teams were inspired, motivated. They played for him. They loved the guy. Okay, that's the good side. He can recruit and he can inspire. And he brings a sense of presence and credibility to a program. And that's why I said at the time of the hiring that he was a good hire for the Kansas program to bring recognition and credibility to this program and a bridge to the next head coach. All right. Let's consider that he was handed the keys by Nick Saban. So he had a roster, he had a program already built for him. He just maintained it. And he maintained it from the time that he took it over in 2005 all the way through 2011. So he did a fine job for 7 seasons. Then after that, they certainly underachieved. 21-13 in the SEC over his last 4+ years, with no top 10 finishes, and that's from a roster that was laden with NFL talent. The game management, the clock management is awful and always has been. He basically, Les Miles, kept my channel running over the course of 3 or 4 seasons because the game management and the clock management was that bad. It always gave me something to talk about and criticize. All right, again, the credibility and presence is good for Kansas. It's a good hire. Give me that grass-eating Les Miles. It's good for college football. I'd love to see it, but give me other coaches to run my team. Les Miles is at number 7. All right, at number 6 in the Big 12, we go to the well. with Matt Wells of Texas Tech. All right, what a job he did at Utah State, going 44-34, 30-18 in the conference at Utah State. All right, this is going to be intriguing for me to see how he does in comparison to Cliff Kingsbury in Lubbock, because you had Mike Leach, who won 65% of his games and finished in the top 25 in the nation 5 of his last 6 seasons. Tommy Tuberville was a bridge for 2 seasons. That Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know how he kept his job for as long as he did. Maybe the young ladies like him. But I don't know how he kept his job, winning between 5 and 7 games and losing 70% of his games in the Big 12. So Matt Wells, I believe, can do much better than that. He was an excellent coach at Utah State, culminating his career there at his alma mater with a record of 11-2 and a top 25 finish. Expect the defense to improve considerably with Matt Wells at the helm there in Lubbock. He is our number 6 coach in the Big 12. All right, at number 5, we go to Iowa State and Matt Campbell. He's winning at Iowa State. That should be all I need to say. Matt Campbell wins, and he's winning at Iowa State. All right. He's not getting beat badly when Iowa State does lose in the Big 12. They're beating good teams and competing with good teams. Look at their performance against West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Texas over the past 2 seasons. They've either beaten those teams or they have competed down to the wire with those teams. 8-5, 8-5 the last 2 years in Ames, Iowa. Matt Campbell's an excellent football coach, and he's got his team playing hard. They had arguably the best defense in the Big 12 and almost won their bowl game 28-26 on a controversial play late in the game against Washington State. Matt Campbell at number 5 in the Big 12. At number 4, we've got Mike Gundy from Oklahoma State, who's now a man in 51, I believe. So Les Miles built this program at Oklahoma State. It had been down for about 15 to 20 years. Les Miles turned it around, and he made Oklahoma State decent. Mike Gundy, though, took it to another level. After only going 18-19 his first 3 years, he then brought Oklahoma State to a top 25 ranking 8 of the next 11 seasons. The peak was in 2010 and 11 when he took his team to a couple major bowls. They finished in the top 10 in the nation, and he went 23-3 in those 2 seasons. And, of course, they could have played for the BCS championship game and probably should have as the Big 12 champion because we had that rematch between Alabama and LSU. Who knows what would have happened? They won the Big 12 championship. That's only Mike Gundy's. That's his lone Big 12 championship. Okay, they have flatlined since then. They've been a solid program, a top 25 program generally. But Mike Gundy is not recruiting well enough to win Big 12 championships, and that's why he only has 1 in 15 seasons. This is year number 15 coming up for Mike Gundy. He's been around a long time, and a lot of folks in Stillwater are starting to get a little bit restless because they cannot compete with Oklahoma. And based on his recruiting, they're not going to get there. All right, 62-29 since that big run in 2011. Mike Gundy still a fine head football coach at number 4 in the Big 12. Our final 3 starts with Tom Herman in Austin, Texas with the Longhorns. He was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for the Ohio State Buckeyes as they won the national championship in 2014. That ascended him to the job at Houston, where he did a fine job. Of course, they won a New Year's Six Bowl against Houston or against Florida State. He went on a 22-4 run. They won the American Conference in just over 2 years at Houston. Did a remarkable job. All right. He takes Charlie Strong's talent, and he goes from a losing program at Texas and gets them to a bowl game, and they win it to finish at 7-6 and played arguably the best defense in the Big 12 in 2017. In 2018, as an offensive guy, the offense finally kept up with his skills and caught up to his skills, and they took off here in 2018. They went 10-4. They came within 4 or 5 minutes of winning another game, the rematch with Oklahoma, and winning the Big 12 championship, and then, of course, had the outstanding effort in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia. He's recruiting out of his mind. Top 5 talent in the nation 2 consecutive years. Tom Herman coming off 10 wins and a Big 12 championship appearance. Sugar Bowl win. Top 5 recruiting class. Tom Herman and Texas on a roll. He's at number 3 in the Big 12. All right. At number 2, we've got Lincoln Riley of Oklahoma. Now, I don't know that we've seen a coach in recent years who's been set up for success like Lincoln Riley. We're going to see another one this fall in Ryan Day at Ohio State. Bob Stoops owned the Big 12. He won 9 Big 12 championships in 14 seasons, finished in the top 10 12 times in 14 years. So Lincoln Riley had the roster, the program, everything was in place to succeed. But despite continuing to field awful defenses, Lincoln Riley has found a way to raise the bar at Oklahoma, raise the recruiting level, which may pay off on the defensive side of the ball soon. And they have been better prepared than Bob Stoops' teams over the last 10 years to compete against national programs outside the Big 12, like Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama. Yes, I know Bob Stoops beat Alabama in the 2014 Sugar Bowl, but by and large, Bob Stoops' last handful of years, Oklahoma did not perform generally well against the other Power 5 elite programs. Oklahoma's been well prepared. They have not been outclassed in any of these games. Even if they lose, they are an elite program. Truly, that was arguable under Bob Stoops. They were considered second tier. Now, Oklahoma's right there in the top 5, right along Ohio State and Georgia. Lincoln Riley, the second best coach in the Big 12. And at number 1, we go to TCU and Gary Patterson. In his 19th year at the school, he has taken this program through all sorts of transitions. From the WAC to Conference USA to the Mountain West and now to the Big 12. It did take a couple seasons for them to acclimate themselves to the Big 12 and that level of play. From 2005 to 11, Gary Patterson dominated the Mountain West. They went 70-13, make that 77-13 with 4 conference championships and 4 finishes in the top 10 in the nation. Then I mentioned the struggles for 2 seasons in the Big 12 before they kicked it in 2014. They could have been selected to the college football playoff. They shared, of course, infamously, the Big 12 championship with Baylor. They went to the Big 12 championship game again in 2017. They have finished in the top 10 3 times in the last 5 seasons. Gary Patterson, considering the size of the school, the relative insignificance in terms of comparison to Power 5 play, going back just a few years when they transitioned from the Mountain West, to compete at this level, at that school, consistently, even though he's not able to recruit quite the athletes that you see at Texas and Texas A&M, Gary Patterson is the best coach in the Big 12. Those are my rankings for Big 12 coaches heading into 2019. I would love to get your comments and your rankings as well. Like the video, comment, share, and subscribe to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, where we deliver the best discussion, debate, and analysis. We'll see you next time.